Hi everyone, my name is Christy and I am a product consultant for Morningstar Direct. I'm going to walk you through how to do this assignment today. So first we're going to need to log in to Morningstar Direct. Go ahead and put in your email address and your password. In Direct, we want to go down into the Workspace module here in the bottom left. This is where we want to create a list of the different stocks. So if we're in Workspace, Investment Lists, and My Lists, click that plus New button at the top of the page and choose Multiple Investments and click OK. In this new window that opens up, we want to add in these different stocks. Change our universe at the top from Open-End Funds. Click this drop down here, change it to Stocks. We can enter it in by name, but I have a list of tickers, so I'm going to choose this drop down and change this to tickers. I'm going to bring in a few different stocks that I'd like to analyze. Please note we always want to use the USD, so the US dollar version, and then I also want to check the exchange. So this is the NASDAQ exchange, but we also have some that have the New York Stock Exchange. So we want to click on this, click Add, and then add in the other stocks I have here. So I'm going to add in Pfizer, American Express, Tiffany's, and Oppenheimer. Now that I've added them all to the selected records at the bottom, I want to click OK. Here you'll see we have some data points already lined up for these different stocks. If we want to see some other sets of data points, Morningstar has some pre-canned sets. If you click here where it says Snapshot, this drop down, we can change it to Returns as of month end. There we can see some total return values over different time periods. We can also change it to Risk as of month end, Arithmetic Mean, Standard Deviation. We can create our own sets of data by using this Edit Data button at the top of the page as well. We also want to make sure to save, so click this Save button. Let's call it Efficient Frontier Demo. I'm going to click OK here. And now once we have this investment list, we want to bring this into the Asset Allocation tool. I would suggest using Google Chrome or Mozilla Firefox and typing in assetallocation.morningstar.com. Once this loads up for us here, we will have to log in. And this is the asset allocation landing page. So asset allocation, basically we're using this to model the behavior of these stocks, optimize on various risk and return metrics to identify optimal strategic asset allocation policies, and then forecast those policies' future performance. This is where we're going to create that efficient frontier. So first we need to choose Asset Class Setup. Here we can choose from one of our investment lists in Workspace. So let's choose Investment List, Get Investment List. Efficient Frontier Demo. This will load up for us. And you'll see now all of these are set up as proxy indexes. Click OK here. Then we want to click OK at the bottom. So now we've created this asset class set. Now we want to create an input using that asset class set. So select an asset class set. We want to choose this one. We want to stick with this model of log normal. This is described by two parameters, the arithmetic mean and the standard deviation. It's the most simple distribution model since other ones are described by more parameters than this. So we're just going to stick with this today. And then click OK in the bottom right. And this will open up another settings window. And this is where we'll see some different settings here, the data frequency, for instance. And this is the different methods of determining the expected return. So I'm just going to go with historical because then we can choose the time period. Some of these baseline settings. We're going to keep all of these the same today. And click OK again in the bottom right. And now we're going to be taken to the online platform of asset allocation. So this new window will open up for you. Once this opens up, you'll see it's organized by 3 main tabs. The input workspace, this is where you're going to set up your capital market assumptions. Most of them we've already set in that previous window there. The optimizer workspace is where you can view the efficient frontier and form different portfolios along the frontier. And then the forecasting workspace is where you can view the Monte Carlo simulation for your portfolios. So before we begin in here, let's make sure to save these. So we want to save the input and the case. The input is all of your capital market assumptions in the input workspace, and then the case includes what we have in the optimizer and the forecast workspace. So before we get started, we're going to save this. So we just saved the input file, and now we're saving the case file. Perfect. So let's take a look at this input workspace. This is where we can adjust the settings that we've already set up. Something new that we do want to check on here is this estimates button. Once we click into here, we do want to check the correlation. In order for asset allocation to run properly, the correlation needs to be under 20. We're at 2.07 here, so we're good on that. But we can always click the correlation test to make sure that we are well conditioned. If you aren't well conditioned, I might suggest putting in a different list of stocks to get asset allocation to run properly. Let's click OK here and OK again. And now let's go ahead into the optimizer workspace where we can set up the efficient frontier. So here's the efficient frontier. This is basically the program took all the capital market assumptions we made in the input workspace and then ran a linear optimization to give you this efficient frontier based on the idea that for every level of return, one portfolio exists to offer the lowest possible risk. And for every level of risk, one portfolio offers the highest return. If you move your mouse across the frontier, you can see what different portfolios or asset mixes there are. Each of these has a different risk and return. If you see that this right here, we have a return of 23.17. Oh, and I just lost it. And see that risk number right there next to it. If you want to add an asset mix to the graph, you can either click on the frontier. So go ahead and find a position here. Let's add that asset mix. So this is how we're allocated among these different stocks. Okay. Now you'll see that's our asset mix now shown on the frontier. And we have all this different data about that one asset mix. Another way to add this is by choosing the Edit Asset Mixes button. We can create one of our own. Let's call this Test Asset Mix. And we can enter in these different allocations. We'll do that for now. I'm going to add another asset mix there, just so we have something to look at here. You'll see these will just populate as tiny squares along the frontier. So now, after identifying some optimal asset mixes, we can now forecast the future performance of those asset mixes. And this is when we want to go into the forecasting workspace. This is all based off the Monte Carlo simulation, so we can see how these perform over time. For our purposes, we're not going to go too much into detail on forecasting, just because the main point of this exercise is to look at the efficient frontier. But we did want to see then what asset allocation can do with these asset mixes. So this is all for today, and please make sure to take a photo, a screenshot of this efficient frontier to be able to turn in. Thank you so much, and I hope you've enjoyed this.